Hello friends, and welcome to Figure Study, where I'm almost as surprised as you are to see that we are taking a look at an Earthrise figure. Diana and I went for a walk today, and Target we walked into had a couple of Earthrise figures. I didn't really care about Ironworks, but I was interested in Wheeljack, so I got Wheeljack, and I like Wheeljack. I know it's uncharacteristic of me to do videos on new stuff, but the reason I wanted to on Wheeljack specifically is because there are a couple of things about him that I haven't been seeing people mention in videos, so I figured I might as well cover it. That may change by the time this video goes up. That may have changed already, I don't know. I don't watch all of the videos, but of the handful that I've seen, there are some things that were missed, so I figured I'd talk about it. Anyway, Earthrise Wheeljack is Wheeljack. I've never had a G1-ish Wheeljack before. I've only ever had Transformers Prime version, so don't have any prior knowledge really to compare this to the G1 toy or the Masterpiece or anything like that. I did have an interest in the Masterpiece, but I just never got around to getting it. But this is pretty cool, actually. I really think that it's a cool vehicle mode. I think that the transformation is fun. I actually like the robot mode a fair bit, with just like a couple of minor things. And the transformation actually makes a lot of sense when you know like certain things to look out for. The vehicle looks pretty good too. It's that kind of, sleek wedge shape. I also like how it's kind of got this two-layered effect in the front here with like the angles. The paint's pretty good. There's actually a surprising amount of tapographing and paint detailing on the vehicle here. I mean, just ignoring the logos, like the coloration going on here with like the green, red, black, back into green stripe along the side there, the green and red up here, red here, green and red here. And the windshield is a dark, translucent plastic, thank goodness. It's not like a weird, uncharacteristic, unpainted thing, and it's not so clear you can easily see all the robot junk on the inside. I like this. They handled the windshield really nice here. One thing I'm going to want to do myself at some point in the near future is just paint that little bit back there black so it looks like the windshield goes all the way back. The way it looks, just looking at it from a distance, it looks fine, and you don't even necessarily notice that there should be window back there, but when you get in close and you see that it's molded in, then it kind of, it feels like it's missing, but only because of that molding there. I feel like if this was flat and didn't have the little indent to make it look like there was a window there, it wouldn't even matter. Anyway, it's got the typical Wheeljack kind of vents along the back there, the spoiler, the back of the car, while it's not super fantastic looking, it is actually painted. A little bit of black back there. The lights could probably stand to be painted, but And it's a little bit broken up here, but that's really only a problem when you're looking at it from this angle, because when you're looking at it from the front, it's behind the spoiler, so even like from the top, you don't really see it. I also appreciate the rims here, how it's that light red color, whereas the tires themselves are black, so it does separate it out. I like that. They don't roll super great, but yeah, it makes a bad sound and feels terrible. But I do appreciate the fact that it's, black tires with actual colored rims. Underside is nothing to write home about, but with the exception of seeing his head clearly right there, it doesn't even necessarily look like there's a robot. I guess you could see the fists, but they kind of blend in because they're so dark. And lastly, there are all of the sponsor tapographs and whatnot along the side there. I'm not going to read all of these because even looking at it on the camera, it's fuzzy in my it's fuzzy to my eyes, my old man eyes. I also like that these are not super intrusive to the vehicle mode, because if you look at it like this, yeah, you get this little sponsorship stuff along the side, but it just kind of adds texture. It's small enough that it's primarily the 638 that shows up, and everything else just kind of, it doesn't get in the way. It's not like plastered all over the entire car, and I very much appreciate that. Okay, so moving Wheeljack off to the side there, let's bring in some stuff like our standard deluxe, and he is smaller than a standard deluxe, in vehicle mode at least. I haven't put him side by side in robot mode yet. We'll see how that goes. But Samus out of the way here, you can see that he's a bit shorter. He's wider, but he's also like it's down further, and definitely lighter in terms of weight. Which, yeah, it's a shame, but that's kind of how this has been going. Still, I feel like for what this guy is for a modern deluxe, there's still a fair bit of paint detailing and color in that vehicle mode, which I really appreciate. And as always, here he is with the duck tank. And I am going to talk about the accessory because I guess I'm just feeling the need. Also, I kind of feel like this just goes with Wheeljack. You know, I feel like he looks a little weird without this mounted on his shoulders, so I want to go over it. And it's his launcher thing. It's got this giant peg sticking out of the side that I'm not a fan of, but it does allow you to peg it onto the car, so if you wanted to store it, you could peg it there. What I've found I actually prefer is you can peg it into the ports back here. Yeah, it sticks out of the back, but if you're looking at it from the front like this, it doesn't really interrupt the silhouette of the car from these angles, from these types of angles. Like, you can't even see that it's there from that angle. So that's what I like to do with this. I thought maybe you could wedge it down here during transformation, but it does not work. There's just no way. But yeah, looking at the design itself, it's kind of, from what I understand, pretty typical. It's that kind of robot lunchbox with a cone sticking out of the front look. Some nice detailing. What's kind of strange to me about this, I feel like there's got to be some kind of intended function with the peg hole back here, especially that groove underneath, but I don't know what that is. Maybe someone else will figure it out. I'm sure someone else will figure it out. Anyway, let's turn this into a robot. And there we have Earthrise Wheeljack, all robot moded out, and I do have issues with this, but overall I definitely like it. The color breakup is pretty decent. Like, you get most of the hood details from the car in his feet there. There's a little bit of green that was hiding underneath the windshield, so that goes up into the legs, and I like that detail because that does kind of tie in with what's going on down here. And then there's that breakup of white-black kind of going in through like the thighs and midsection and shoulders and shins and all that. The thing is, it does seem like aside from his head and the backs of his shoulder, well, not backs, from here, the fronts of his shoulder wings, aside from that, you don't really get much paint for the robot mode. It almost all went to the vehicle mode. It's like this, the head, and the underside of the spoiler. And that's it. I feel like he could probably do with a little bit more paint in maybe the forearms or the shoulders, or in like the pelvis and thigh area, maybe. Not anything I can't do myself, but it's a little bit stark. Not a huge deal, really. I still think he's very cool. I like the transformation a lot. It's just, I do wish there was just a little bit more paint and color variation going on in here. That said, it is a really interesting transformation. I like how it works. The arms proportionally are a little bit off. For whatever reason, it seems like they either refuse to or simply can't come up with ways to give Wheeljack arms that aren't hanging down to his knees. Also, the elbows seem to be up a little high. Just a little bit. I feel like if the elbow joint was down here as opposed to here, it wouldn't look quite as awkward, but nitpicking, he's a robot, it's fine. And there's the stuff going on back here. This is kind of a shame. I do think it'd be cool if this could like fold in to just clean up a little bit, but in hand, it's not as bad as I thought it would be. It's not great. I'm not a super fan of it, but you know, if you get him just kind of posed at like a slight angle or something, it's not so bad. You don't really notice it. It's more this stuff going on in here that just sort of like visually dictates the shape of his torso. This just, it disrupts the silhouette a little bit, but it's not a deal breaker. And then his shoulder wings, they do stand out. They are painted silver. That's great. There's some nice detailing on them. Maybe if they were a little bit longer, could stand out a little bit more, but it's fine. And as for the details, it's got lots of nice molding, lots of little bits that are revealed. There is some nice kind of, I guess, future-y, techy line work going on in the arms here, which I like very much. It's just wish there was a little bit more color in there. The head, I am not a Wheeljack aficionado by any means, but that definitely looks like Wheeljack to me. It's got that weird kind of face scarf look, the giant ears, the little three-pronged mohawk thing, which might stick out a little too far. I don't know if this is supposed to go like the entire length of his head or not, but it looks cool. They did do something that I'm not super fond of, though. There's no light piping on this guy. There's no little thing back there for light piping to go through, and the eyes actually do appear to be painted. The thing that bugs me about this, though, is the paint they used for the eyes is really dark. They just kind of look dead when they're next to the black on the top of the head. Like, if it was more silver going throughout, I think they would stand out more because the darkness of the eyes would contrast with the lightness of the silver, but because you've got this dark color right up here, the eyes just kind of blend into that. And they don't stand out as much as I wish they could. But whatever, I could probably paint that myself. Now, I want to talk about real quick the things that I didn't see many other people covering. One thing that I've seen mentioned a couple of times is the fact that sometimes going into vehicle mode, the feet don't want to play nice and they kind of stick in a little bit. That is because there is actually a soft locking point in the heel here. So you can see it moves like it should. If you're going into car mode, you actually want to push it all the way in, and you'll kind of feel it soft lock into place. And there we go. It definitely takes some doing, but if you get it pushed into place like that, and then go to straighten out the legs, you'll see they line up just fine. You want to make sure to click those into place when going into vehicle mode, and then you want to kind of pop them back out when going into robot mode, so that way you get that proper ankle tilt. The other thing, it's just something I found out by accident, but I think is kind of interesting. The spoiler, the back wings, they're not stuck in place. They rotate because they're just pegs. They're just regular old pegs. So if you wanted to, you could actually take them off and reposition them in various places. And that also gives you ports for additional weapons and whatnot. It's not a thing that I think is super important. It's just interesting. And it's not something I saw anyone really talking about. So yeah, if you, for whatever reason, wanted to, you could totally just take off his back wings and peg something else up there. Peg these somewhere else. It's a thing you can do, I guess. Alright, now for this thing. Because of the big peg, you can peg it into his hand, peg it into his arm, various other places, but it also has this tab here, which can peg into either of these slots over his shoulder. I think this is the shoulder it's supposed to go into, but because of this peg up here, I prefer to peg it into this shoulder so that that peg is kind of hidden by his head. And it doesn't really affect the articulation at all, so I just do that because it makes that peg a little bit less noticeable. Now, the thing that kind of bums me out about this Wheeljack is the fact that this is it. This is all you get. I'm not huge into the accessory thing, clearly because I barely ever mention them in these videos, but I feel like he could have done with something, like a gun or something like that, because he's just standing there with his little shoulder-mounted thing, and that's it. So, just for the heck of it, let's take Siege Ratchet's wrench, pop that in his hand, and there we go. Now Wheeljack has at least a tool. I think it fits. Whether or not I'm going to keep this with him or give it back to Ratchet, I don't know, but it's a thing. Also, for storage, you can totally peg this into the back of his launcher and then peg the launcher down somewhere so that it kind of keeps everything together. But yeah, I like that. I think that looks good. And I'm, like I said, not a Wheeljack aficionado, but I think he does look good with the wrench. One other thing before we move on to size comparisons that kind of baffles me, the top of his hands are hollow. I don't know why they did that. So if you look at the underside is not hollow, and it's like, molded a certain way, painted a certain way, and so on and so forth because of construction. I just kind of wonder, why did this have to be the hollow bit? Because this is the part that's facing forward. I mean, I totally understand, and I've defended Hasbro making certain parts hollow because, it's like cost cutting. They've gotta, they gotta make their money. They gotta budget things. These figures would cost more than what they already cost if they didn't do this kind of stuff. But just, why have the gap facing front? All I can do is guess. Anyway, let's move Wheeljack off to the side so we can do our size comparisons. Here he is with a standard deluxe, and yeah, okay, bulk-wise, he is definitely smaller, but I feel like height-wise, he's only fractionally smaller, like maybe a third of a head, maybe half a head. He's not that much shorter. Also, I'm just now realizing it's Wheeljack with the character that's totally Wheeljack, but not actually Wheeljack. I didn't plan for that, it just kind of happened. And here he is with the duck tank. So yeah, that is gonna do it for Earthrise Wheeljack. I actually like this guy a lot. I kind of thought I was going to give him a pass when I was first seeing the videos for him, because he has this kind of awkward boxiness to him, and he does look a little bit sparse in robot mode, color-wise, but I could fix that myself, like I've said. But he's actually a lot of fun. The various nitpicks that I have, just, the lack of color, the gaps in the fists in the front there, it's not that big a deal. And as I said, even the stuff going on back here that's kind of messing up the silhouette isn't really that big a deal, because you have him on an angle like this, you don't even notice those, and he looks pretty darn good, especially with that wrench. I'm thinking I'm gonna let him keep that wrench. Ratchet can hold something else, I don't know, but this works for me. Or heck, maybe I can grab a 5mm port wrench off of Shapeways or something, I don't know. But yeah, as I said, I've got a few nitpicks here and there, but overall, I'm surprised by how much I like this figure. I kind of grabbed him because it was between him and Ironworks, and I wasn't really interested in Ironworks, but I wanted to try and start on the Earthrise stuff, and yeah, what can I say? He is cool. But that's enough of my rambling about Earthrise Wheeljack. What do you all think of this guy? I'm sure most people have the opinion that he is better than Combiner Wars Wheeljack, because from what I understand, Combiner Wars Wheeljack is not very well liked. But as a Wheeljack figure, as a figure in general, what do you all think? Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. And remember, art, and in some ways engineering, is more than meets the eye.